You've all been waiting for it, and I have been too. Yes, I finally got the much anticipated Moondrop May in for review. And you know, for a while now, Moondrop has been releasing some flops, honestly, and a lot of whatever releases, be it the peaky, sort of rough sounding Stellaris, or, you know, the really shouty Starfield 2 that really discouraged me from Moondrop, considering that the Starfield 1 was my gateway into the Moondrop as a brand in the first place. And you also have the beautiful world, which seems to just literally be a juiced up Kato, but a lot more expensive. And I've tried it. It really isn't good. Like, they made the Kato, the Moondrop IEM that I love the most, into something just ugh. So yeah, Moondrop was on such a roll since like 2020 to early 2022. Then it seemed like they lost their magic touch. However, when I got to try the Moondrop May for the first time in the recent PotaFest 2023, I was really impressed. And I wanted one as soon as possible to get in for review, and finally here it is. So let's see how the Moondrop May fares, shall we? The box of the Moondrop May is well sized, as you can see, and as tradition with Moondrop, we get a nice big anime waifu art slapdash right in the front. Now this one looks very nice, as you can see, and it's got that, you know, clover, leaves, and flowers theme. Very cool. But again, I would have wanted it to be in color instead of black and white. It's like Moondrop ran out of color ink in the printers or something. Jeez, every release since, like, I don't know, the U2, or actually the Stellaris, has been in black and white. I don't know what's the deal here. But yeah, on the back we've got some standard specifications and of course the frequency graph. Sliding out the cover, we've got a super fancy looking inner box that has a slightly reflective pattern of, you know, clovers and flowers. It really reminds me of the very fancy inner box of the Moondrop line. Doing a little X-ray peek inside, we see the Moondrop May themselves and phones inserts in the top, and we get the carrying case in the bottom of the box. The case itself is probably made of fake leather, and although I don't personally like the brown color, it's decently spacious and it feels pretty premium compared to the usual pouch case, so this is a win in my book. And inside that case contains our cable. And my oh my, what a cable it is. Now Moondrop, they aren't really known for bundling in good cables. Probably they're known for making really bad cables with their IEMs. But they've turned a 180 here, and this cable is probably, it has one of the most cool looking wires I've ever seen, period. Like, it's silverish, but kind of more like space gray. The wires are nicely braided. It's got, you know, a chin slider, you know, has a matte sort of metal look to it. Again, really nice. And you've got a mic clump that has full volume up and down, as well as play pause controls, instead of just a one button mic that we've seen before. Speaking of the mic, here's a sample. The microphone of the May's DSP cable is pretty good, actually. It has a high recording gain, which does introduce some background noise, and whilst my voice lacks a bit of that low-end body, it does sound clear, if a little bit too sharpened. This would more than suffice for just basic calls and Zoom meetings, and you can probably use this for recording basic videos, and it wouldn't be half bad. And this cable terminates in USB-C. They've also included a USB-C jack on it. Again, really nice inclusion. Remember guys, wear protection for your jacks. That's because the May has DSP functions, which links up to the Moondrop Link app to to allow for sound presets as well as parametric EQ capabilities. Now, I am told by Moondrop's CEO that the hardware used here is similar to a CDSP cable with some alterations, and its firmware is different from the CDSP. So of course, when you plug this in the Moondrop link, it'll show as Moondrop May. But yeah, we'll get to all that a bit later. Overall though, a really nice cable. And I'm actually trying to find someone who can sell me an Aria 2 cable, because that one, it uses the same wires as this, but it terminates into interchangeable plugs where you can use either 3.5 or 4.4 millimeters, which I would use for my other IEMs, because wow, this cable is really aesthetically pleasing in my eyes. What's left of this package is going to be located under the foam inserts of the Moondrop May themselves. So it's going to come in this little box here. You take that out, take out the envelope, and you get 3 sizes of the sort of generic Moondrop ear tips that you commonly get in Moondrop IEMs. Not the best, but not the worst either. And finally, you have a smattering of basically, you've got like this quality control, you've got the warranty card, you've got this information contact card, and the user manual, or more like a user pamphlet, which is printed in English and in Chinese. Overall, it's a pretty fully featured package with all you would need. A nice case, DSP cable, which is of course extra value, since you can swap it out into other IEMs to experiment in the future, although of course the tuning that the DSP does is specific for the May, but still you can use it for other IEMs. Now I could nitpick about this Velcro strip right here, which again is a downgrade. Don't think I didn't notice, Moondrop. This is just a strip, it's not a hook like before. Or I could say, you know, I wanted more ear tips, but honestly, I really feel like Moondrop maximized the unboxing and accessory experience for $65, and I feel more than satisfied with what is being given here. It's probably the most value-packed unboxing experience from Moondrop yet, aside from maybe the Chew, because that thing has, you know, the Moondrop spring ear tips. Now to the Moondrop May themselves, and it's a pretty looker of an IEM as well. You're getting a metal front plate with the same sort of clover and flower motif as the box. It's reflective due to having this sort of mirror finish kind of texture. And naturally, this makes it a fingerprint magnet. I've had to wipe it down quite a lot just to get this footage, but it does look quite impressive otherwise. And since it's a flat surface, I've known of some friends who have, you know, gotten a vinyl skin and stuck it up here, so you could try that out if you want. The side that faces your ear here, it's basically a frosted dark resin. As you can see, when you shine in the light, it sort of reveals a bit of the components inside. It's got a smoky look. So this is very reminiscent of the resin used on the Moondrop variations. So my main gripe with this shell is actually the nozzle. So as you can see, it's got a lip which helps your tips not fall off. Cool, right? But it does not have any kind of stopping groove at the bottom. I'll show a little graphic I drew so you can sort of know what I'm talking about. So some ear tips, like with the AET07 or like wider bore ear tips, they'll just slip in and slip in way too deep at 2 different angles on the earpieces themselves. So when you wear those ear tips, you may mistake your May as having like really bad channeling balance, but it's actually just because the tip angles are misaligned. So be careful with that, and probably stick to ear tips that aren't too wide so that they don't go in too deep with the shell. But fitment wise, aside from the nozzle issue, I've had basically no problems wearing the May in my ears. It's light, it's ergonomic, and extended listening sessions I think will likely not be any problem. Well, since we are using the DSP cable, that's basically the source for the Moondrop May. But if you do use the Moondrop May with a normal 3.5mm output or a balanced connection, it will exhibit slight changes to its tonality as well. I would recommend a neutral, a brighter, or a sort of warm bright source to enhance the May's already warm sound with a bit of extra clarity. As far as output power goes, the May can work with weaker sources, but a little bit more juice wouldn't hurt either. And as for ear tips, it seems that narrow bore ear tips are the most suitable, with the stock Moondrop silicone tips already being pretty alright on the May, if a little hard to fit because the nozzle is kind of big compared to the opening for the ear tip. But right now though, I am using these medium-sized Tangentium TAPB bass tips. Though on the May, it doesn't really have a bass boosting effect. What it does do is that it has a softer silicone umbrella here, which is more comfortable on my ears. Let's get to how the Moondrop May sounds on its DSP cable. So the following sound descriptions will be made with the May via its DSP cable on the standard preset. Note that this is different from having the parametric EQ settings at the default, which is more akin to having the raw frequency output of the Moondrop May IEMs themselves. I will have a companion piece video that will explain the different nuances of the presets and along with covering the features and how the Moondrop Link app works. But for now, we will stick with the standard preset. In most of the different presets, the general feature of the Moondrop May is that it is probably the most fun sounding Moondrop IEM, with a warm, impactful sound accompanied with a very effective use of the microplanar driver to create what I would describe as sharp treble. So starting with the bass. The low end on the Moondrop May is very present. It has a nice slam. It creates solid hits of sub bass whilst also not skimping out on the mid bass. It seems that thanks to the planar driver handling the top end, the dynamic driver here is alleviated of some of its duties, and it's able to really focus on handling the bass here. I really like the impactfulness that the May's bass imparts on your music. And on songs like Azurus' Without You Beside Me, the bass shows that it can more than keep up with the speed of the raging bass lines, whilst nicely creating a constant rumble that is deliberate with bass detail that is also nicely shown. And this is on the standard preset, which means that the driver takes well to quite a bit of EQ too if you do want even more bass impact for that bass head experience, right? This is probably the best implementation of a dynamic driver bass that I've heard from Moondrop, and I vastly prefer it over the bass on the Blessing Free or even the Variations. I don't quite like the Variations, so it's definitely better than what the Variations has to offer even. So going to the mids, I was a bit afraid that the bass would be overly dominant and that it would overshadow the mid-range, but no. The May continues Moondrop's trademark VDSF mid-range, that all its fans clamor for, including me. The lower mid-range is nicely warmed up without being overbearing, and of course, you can modify it to your taste with the parametric EQ features. Upper mids here, they maintain that VDSF style peanut gain, right? It's having a slightly less drastic rise, so it allows for a nicely present vocal presentation without the shoutiness and the graininess. I guess a nitpick is that the mid-range in general, although it does not choke in busier tracks, actually it separates still quite nicely in busier tracks. But there seems to be a smoothing out of micro details in favor of the more major elements in music. But otherwise, if you've listened to Moondrop mid-range before, the May just continues to show Moondrop's tuning excellence here. The high end of the Moondrop May is another standout for this IEM. I previously dismissed the use of planar drivers due to the amount of
uneven frequency peaks that they create, with not much in the way of actual tangible technical advantages. But the May has definitely changed that perception for me. The microplanar driver inside here really does improve the treble performance. Instead of going for a natural kind of clarity, a crystalline and sort of airy feel like with the Kato, what the treble in the May goes for is that it portrays sharpness in a really tasteful way that not only manages to avoid the common pitfalls of sibilance and edginess, but it also enhances the upper notes of the May with added treble detail. I'll be dying to see how Moondrop implements this into their future IEMs, because the May's treble performance to my ears is a success. It's different from what the Kato does, but I like it nonetheless. The soundstage of the Moondrop May remains largely unchanged, whether through the DSP cable or 3.5mm outputs, with the bass being the most intimate and narrow component, so you'll have this effect where bass is kind of shallower, but with the mids and the high ranges sitting sort of average in terms of width. Height is somewhat present, but the imaging ability of the May is just okay for the price, and overall imaging, it's kind of meh. Now, I was initially worried that the May, without the DSP adjustments, would be very peaky and uneven. Like, you know, I thought that the DSP was basically a crutch that saved the planar driver from having uneven peakiness, but thankfully, my doubts were proven incorrect. The good things don't merely stop with the DSP cable here, as even if you use the May with a normal 3.5mm cable or a balanced connection, you still get a nicely tuned IEM with enhanced technical ability thanks to being unchained from the limits of the DAC in the DSP cable. Now, don't get me wrong here. The DSP cable is plenty good enough to get you started and get you messing around the EQ presets. However, it had to trade dynamic range in order to drive the May at a higher volume, and it's kind of bottlenecking the May's resolution retrieval a little bit as well. So I've got the May plugged into the 3.5mm output of my iBasso DX160, and I like it even more. You'll immediately notice that volume is increased from using the standard preset, or any of the 5 presets actually, due to the nature of these presets being subtractive EQs. Also aided by the fact that, of course, the source I'm using is more powerful. Now, bass doesn't seem to have changed much from the standard preset. However, you'll notice a slightly increased upper mid-range presence. Just enough to add that little bit of extra emotion to your music. And the treble here, though, it seems to vary. On some songs, it seems that the sharpness is slightly reduced, whereas on some others, it would seem to be more present. Either way, it does not become a messy roller coaster of a frequency graph, but it continues to perform its duties in adding treble detail and presenting a tasteful sharpness. So as you pair your May with a better source, it doesn't have to be like a DAP adapt like me, right? It could just be a semi-decent dongle. I think you'll hear a slightly improved dynamic range, where smaller sounds are kept small and they have a larger variance in terms of volume with the large sounds, and along with some small improvements to separation and detail retrieval of the Moondrop May IEMs. If you find a stock output of the Moondrop May on its DSP cable to be a little bit lacking, switching to 3.5mm and using your own source is definitely a viable alternative, and in my experience, it doesn't take away from the May but makes it shine even more. Phew. There's still a lot to talk about the Moondrop May actually, but the runtime of this vid is getting long, huh? So here's what I'll do. There's a bunch of things to talk about May's DSP presets, how it works within the Moondrop Link application. So, like I said before, I'm going to have a companion piece to this video covering that aspect coming in a few days. And I'm sure that everyone is dying to know how the May compares to similar tier IEMs and even a few stuff that's kind of beyond that. Well, I'm trying to source other IEMs to demo, so stay tuned for a comparison video of the Moondrop May against some other IEMs as well. For a while, Moondrop seemed to have lost their magic touch with releases such as the polarizing Stellaris or the shouty successor in the form of the Starfield 2. But they have finally stuck the landing once more. The Moondrop May, it presents a fun, punchy sound along with VDSF style mid-range, which is always a welcome addition, and meaningful use of a microplanar driver to create a tasteful rendition of treble detail that makes for a delightful listening experience. Coupled with a good unboxing experience, accessories, and a DSP cable, all for $65 no less, there's little to complain about the May on the value front. Whilst the usage experience of said DSP functions in the Moondrop Link app remains unrefined, the May does not rely on its DSP necessarily and can possibly perform even better when used with a normal 3.5mm output. Safe to say, with the Moondrop May, Moondrop have regained their edge. And for an end-of-year release, I really think they just casually dropped one banger of an IEM. Well done, Moondrop. Alright, that's about it for the Moondrop May for now. Stay tuned for other videos that will be covering this IEM, and this is Lumerion signing off.